Hello and welcome everyone to our second session of this year's September Career Week. This one is called CPA Career Ready, Sharpen Your Resume, Interview Skills, and Your Professional Presence. And I would love to welcome Alice Wong to the stage. Alice is one of our student recruitment officers who will be facilitating this session. But before we get into it, I just have two quick housekeeping items to share with all of you. Number one, the session will be recorded and you will all receive the recording likely this Friday via email through Feedloop. So keep your eye out for the recording. And number two, Alice will go through all her content first, but we do encourage you to submit your questions. And to do so, you can do it in the Q&A function that you will find in your navigation bar within Zoom. So please feel free to pose your questions there. At the end of Alice's presentation, we'll do our best to go through as many as possible to address everybody. And just in case your question doesn't get addressed, I will pop an email address into the chat function as well that you can reach out to our recruitment team in case we don't get to your questions. So having said that, without further ado, Alice, welcome to the stage. And here we go.
Thanks, Katya. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's nice to be speaking at Career Week. Hope everyone is having an amazing day. And we had a great session earlier. Great panelists, great sharing. So today I'm going to speak to you about CPA Career Ready, sharpen your resume, interview skills, and your professional presence. So for those folks who haven't met me before, I'm a student recruitment officer here at CPA BC. And I answer any questions about program related, how to apply, but also, how do you stand out in today's job market? So in our session today, we'll go over about how to develop a professional presence. And then we'll dive into a job description example and then the cover letters and resume interviews. I'll show examples of a cover letter and a resume as well. And then we'll go into resources and then live Q&A. I'm gonna skip this because I talked about myself already. Okay, so let's talk about developing your professional presence. And when I see professional presence, I see it in these four different topic areas. Your brand, which is very strong, important, growth opportunities, how to showcase yourself using the PI method, and then networking and job search. So let's talk about your brand first. You need to understand your strengths and weaknesses. What are you great at doing? What problems are you best at solving? And understanding those will help you communicate your strengths doing when you're writing your resume, your cover letter, and also when you're articulating it during your interview stage. Providing real examples for both strength and weaknesses are very crucial. Providing real examples that are clear and concise and specific. And they are when you are articulating those stories, you are being assessed. How are you as a storyteller? In your story, is there a beginning, a middle, and an end? And then the other person, right, you have to think about for the other person is how are they understanding your story? Is there a purpose as to why you're sharing your story? And another thing that you want to understand, part of your brand, is how do you overcome your weaknesses? Everyone have their weaknesses, but it's important to showcase how do you overcome it and how do you problem solve. When you're going through those interviews, the interviewer there's no guidebook as to this person needs to answer it in this specific way. There's no answer key, but what they're assessing is how are you articulating and how are you articulating, and also are you a good fit for the company? When they're thinking about the good fit, are you able to problem solve? Are you able to work in a team environment? Are you able to communicate effectively with clients and with external stakeholders or with internal departments, etc.? So those are all things that they are assessing, all the soft skills that they're assessing when you are in that interview stage. Part of your brand also is being genuine and authentic. Um, we heard a lot from the panelists in the previous session that practice is important, but don't over practice, or reading off the screen is a red flag. Those are things that doesn't come off as genuine or authentic. Make sure that when you are practicing, your strengths and your weaknesses, is that it comes off as genuine. It's important to practice, but not to over practice, like you're reading off a script. And when you're showcasing yourself, again, it's not only just in the interview stage, but it's also in your cover letters and your resumes, even on your LinkedIn. Some people might underlook this is that, or overlook this is that LinkedIn is actually really important. It's a social media where people are going, professional social media, where hiring managers are viewing, to see, how do you articulate online? Are you, are you concise and clear, specific, but not too wordy? Things like that. So make sure that, when you are applying for jobs, your LinkedIn is also matching with what you have in your cover letter, in your resume, and so forth. So next, let's talk about the growth opportunity, which I think it's actually very important. And this was actually touched upon in the last session as well, too, is to be able to reflect and receive feedback. It's having that open mindset and humbleness to it. So when you are receiving feedbacks or when you're reflecting on after that interview, how did you do? Think about what maybe went wrong, how could you improve the next time, what you can do better, what do you want to grow into as a person? I think that's very important to do. Self-reflection is very important. And also having a very clear and open mindset to receive constructive feedback is important. And just also being honest with yourself. And when you're receiving feedbacks, think about also your body language. When are you, all stiffed up and making frowny faces at the other person, or you're trying to nod your head and absorb the information they are telling you. And also is thinking about what they're saying and relating to yourself. How do you want to become better and you want to be growing into a better individual yourself? Now, let's talk about the PI method next. So the PI method is prepare, impress, and engage. So when you're preparing, highly recommend that everyone does this, and not just recommend, but everyone should be doing this, is to research. Information is at our fingertips nowadays. It's so easily accessible. No one should have any excuse that they aren't able to research about the employers or prepare for questions, to engage with the employer later on, or and as well prepare, answers to commonly asked questions. So make sure you prepare. Also, prepare is applied to when you are applying for the job. Are you tailoring your resume? Are you just sending a generic resume to all the different job applications? That's part of prepare. You have to make sure that you are preparing yourself for success. Next, impress. So it's very important. Attire, making sure that you are dressed appropriately for the interview, or it doesn't matter if it's on screen or in person. body language is very important. Are you slouching, or are you whispering, things like that. You have to make sure that, or are you looking at the camera? Are you pretty much square? Do you have a, funky background? All those things that plays into how do you impress. When you're thinking about the impress, think about yourself as a first date. When you're going on a first date, how do you want the other person to uh, view you as? How do you want to be perceived as? Um, do you want that second date, or and third and fourth and so forth? Or, is it just a one and done deal? Um, Again, being authentic and truthful is very important, clear and concise. And again, impress is not just through the interview stage, but it's also on your cover letters, on your resumes, LinkedIn, etc. All those things. And which leads to then the next part is the engage part. Are you asking those questions? What type of questions are you asking? Are you engaging with the interviewer, or whoever you're speaking to? Maybe it could be a networking event. Are you engaging with them? Are you actively listening and asking more um, thoughtful questions? And are you showing enthusiasm for the work and the employer that you're communicating with? Those are all very important items that you want to be paying attention to when you're going through the job search process, as well as networking and in your typical day-to-day work life. Um, Now let's talk about network and job search. So when you're networking, when you're job searching, this again dives back to understanding your brand, understanding who you are as a person. Because when you're job searching, when you're networking, you're usually more drawn to like-minded individuals. And when you're job searching, you're trying to find an organization that potentially may align with your purposes and your values. So understanding who you are as a person, understanding, what are your values, what matters most to you, and what are your non-negotiables are very important items that you want to be considering during this process. Another thing is being realistic and understanding what the current job market trends are. So right now, the job market is very different than a couple of years ago. So we just have to adjust our mindset to how it is right now. So I can speak, for example, when I graduated, and I'm dating myself here a little bit, it was during the economic crash back in 2008. At that time, nobody was hiring. The markets crashed in the United States, and everything was getting affected by it. So, and it took a couple years for the economy to turn around. So I sent out so many resumes, and as a new grad, I didn't have a lot of big work experience. But how I landed my job was through network. And I can't stress how important and crucial it is to network in today's day and age. There's so many events that takes place. And of course, we're not asking you to, and you're not expected to attend all those events. Pick and choose. Find, those specific events that, draws your attention, what matters to you, and, how, do you want to make that connection with that specific company or person? Make sure that it's intentional. There's reasons as to why you're doing it, not just going there just because. Again, like I said, information at our fingertips nowadays. We're not like how it was back then, where job search was done through a newspaper, was like looking through a newspaper and then handing out, actual resumes to the company, et cetera, et cetera. So make sure you utilize all those tools that it's easily accessible to you nowadays. And then also is not only are you being strategic, when you're networking, but it's also in your job search, again, finding out what that company is, or sorry, who that company is, what are their missions and visions, and how does that line up to your values as well. Now, when you're networking, it's beyond those attending the formal events where you have to dress up and speak to a room full of strangers, etc. It's on a day-to-day. It's happening right now where, if you are a post-secondary student and you're working in a team project with your instructors, those are all networking opportunities. Or if you're, working part-time jobs, think about the people that you work with right now. That's a networking opportunity. I um I think in the last panel, one of the panelists mentioned that they they all their jobs that they have, it was through networking. I am the same. I think I've maybe applied for a job once, maybe. I can't even remember. It was that long ago. But everything else was through a network. And it was through the network of my peers when I was a student. And then went networking when I was a student, and which landed my first job. And then and then the rest became work through the peers of my colleagues. They so maybe some people have left, and then their company had a job opening, and then they asked me to go if I would be interested to go over, and then the referral, et cetera, et cetera. So networking is not just when you go to a professional event and then we dress up, meet full of strangers. It's day to day. Think about it as day to day. How is your professional presence on a day to day basis? How are you presenting yourself on a day to day basis? And when you're having those conversations with the whomever you're meeting, let's say a potential employer, um, think about you know you know what they're speaking about, and try to find maybe some um, similar interests or values, and that way that will help potentially ease the bond, and connect the connection a little bit easier. And um, again, your network grows along with your work experience. So make sure that you stay connected with those individuals as well, because you never know where it may lead you. I can say a lot of my ex-coworkers have now become a very close friends of mine, and we all keep very close contact. And sometimes might not just be that you have to, come out and gather and have dinner, etc. But it's just a simple message of, hi, how are you doing? Just, checking in. We haven't talked for a long time, how things are going. Or it could be, a person that you met at an event and you saw that and you follow them on LinkedIn, and they posted something really interesting and it really hits home with you. Send them a message and let them know that, it was really nice to see your post. After reading this, these things connected with me, et cetera, et cetera. That will help build the conversation from there. So just being fluid, and letting organic take the lead as well. Now, a few key components of building your professional presence. Again, your brand. What are you known for? When they think about, let's use me as an example. If they say Alice Wong, student recruitment officer at CPABC. What am I known for? What is my brand? And when you understand that, it becomes a lot easier to communicate and express who you are as a person, when you're meeting, with employers, with colleagues, with mentors, etc. Okay, so let's dive into a job description example. But let me just reshare my, let me pull it up first actually. And then let me share my screen here. Hopefully everyone sees it. Okay, Katya, if you don't see it, you please let me know. But if it's silent, I'm assuming it's a yes.
All good.
Okay, perfect, great. Okay, so what I did was I actually pulled a real job description from the internet. And I think the job posting might still be up. I'm not sure, but I pulled it a couple weeks ago while I was preparing for the session. And it's so they are hiring for a junior accountant for the specific company, and it's to report to the controller. And the position is to manage daily and month-end accounting functions related to inventory, capital assets, financing, other balance sheets, et cetera, et cetera. And then let's look at the key responsibilities because this is where you want to be paying attention to when you are developing your resume. Look at all, make sure that when you are developing your resume, you are inputting these keywords into your resume and your cover letter. So, for example, if the company is using an ATS system to go through their resumes and cover letter applicants, then these are the keywords that they will pick up on. And then let's take a look at the knowledge, skills, and ability. So they want someone, again, with a mindset of growth and curiosity. So these are things that you want to, again, pay attention to, and think about yourself when you're applying for these jobs. What is my personal brand? Are do you have that, willingness for growth, and are you open to feedback? Are you asking questions as why, and think about also your working in team dynamics, and and then the list goes the list goes on with the other types of skills and abilities that they're looking for. And then, of course, typically they would add in, the training of, what they would prefer. And this specific role, they want someone who has the desire to enroll into the CPA professional education program. And then it would be nice to have someone with an accounting or business degree background. So and another thing is that they work out of their they're working in office, and the hours are 40 hours per week, Monday to Friday. So if for say I am someone who can only um, uh, work 10 to 15 hours a week, this would not be the job that I should be applying to because of my availability. So that's something to keep an eye out for. Or, and here already is very important, is a key, is to make sure that if you are, pursuing your designation, it's important to make sure you include this. It's almost like a given. They're giving you the answer that you should include this in your cover letter, in your resume, that it is your desire to pursue the CPA designation, and maybe let them know where you're at in the process. Maybe you've are completing some of the prerequisite courses right now, or maybe you already been accepted to the program and you're going to be starting Core 1 module, so the first course in coming January, something like that, so that they know that, okay, this person is committed and they actually mean it. They are walking the talk. So that's the job example, job description example. I'm gonna stop share and then go back to my PowerPoint slides, and then we're gonna come back. We're gonna go back to the PowerPoint slides and talk about cover letters, resumes, and then come back with an example specific for this job description of the cover letter and resume. Just hang tight. Let me just go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so,
Perfect.
okay, perfect. Thanks, Katya. Okay, so let's talk about cover letters and resumes. They should complement each other. So in the cover letter, it should be brief, concise, and tailored. It should state the specific strengths or talents that you may have that is relevant to the specific position that you are applying for. And the cover letter should also provide information that is not stated on your resume. Keep in mind that in your cover letter, the reviewer who is reviewing these applications, they're reviewing, could be hundreds or a few hundred, like maybe 100 or a few hundreds applications. Their um, interest span is probably about 5 to that 10 seconds. So within that 10 to 5 seconds, you have to capture their interest to continue reading more. And make sure in your cover letter you are displaying that you have researched about the company or the position, and you focus on what the job description or the role is actually needing or requiring. Very important, and you've heard this many times in making sure it's error free. Okay. AI is readily available these days. GPT. There's Gemini, there's Copilot, et cetera, et cetera. You can easily just type out whatever you have, put it into the, let's say, ChatGPT, and then just ask them, can you check the grammar and make sure it's error-free, spelling mistakes, blah, blah, blah. And then that's it. That's all you need to do. And then you can just copy and paste it and make sure that it's done. So, and the thing is also, if you're typing it on Word, turn on the function to make sure that, it's capturing, maybe you have a double period or you add an extra comma or you forgot to uppercase after the sentence, etc. Just make sure you utilize those functions that it's just right there for you to use. And yeah, as I mentioned, make sure you capture the interview, the reviewers' curiosity in your cover letter and also in your resume. So moving on to your resume. Okay, so I've listed the different what I would say categories I would usually use on a resume. So typically, a summary is great of your qualifications and highlight why the employer should hire you. Just 2 to 3 sentences, very short and sweet. And then next, it could be either your qualifications and education or your employment history. So I say or because depending on where you're at in your career stage. So let's say if you're a fresh grad, then your education would probably be more on the top because you may not have that much employment history. But if you're someone that has been working for quite some time, then I'll flip it around and put employment history first, and then qualifications and education, etc. And a very key thing to ensure that you are inputting in your employment history is those qualitative skills, and being able to also quantify those as well. And it could be, and you may also need to address some gaps. Some people may take some time off because they need to attend to a dependent. So make sure you're prepared to address those type of gaps. Also is putting it in chronological order. I think that was a question from the last session about, functional or chronological and stuff, et cetera. So again, depending on where you're at with your career, if you're someone that has worked for, a couple of years, and has had a few jobs, chronological would make more sense. And make sure then as well is you're matching your relevant skills to the job descriptions and qualifications that they're requesting. Be descriptive, but also when in your descriptiveness, make sure you're not writing paragraphs. It needs to be concise and clear, and make sure you utilize those keywords. Think of the job description as your guide, that it's giving you partial answers that, just pick up on those keywords that you are applying to your cover letter and your resumes. And again, the whole storytelling is very important. How are you showcasing your skills and your strengths? Making sure, again, it's tailor-free, error-free, spelling, grammar, all those things. Formatting, having headings and sections, and, no fancy tables, no graphics, no photos, etc. I remember I spoke to a mentor of mine one time, and they mentioned about no photos because when you're not applying for a modeling position. So the photos, it's not necessary. And as well as a lot of the companies now using the automated systems, they're not going to pick up your applications when you have those fancy tables and graphics and photos, etc. They're going to throw it into the do not look pile for the reviewer. So just make sure, just regular bullet points, clear white spots around your resume. It's not too overwhelming, easy to read, and it's easy on the eye. It's important. And the last one is, not a lot of people talk about this, is ensuring that you have references on hand and staying in touch with your references, and they know ahead that you are going to be sharing their contacts with whomever the potential employer is. So a lot of people, when it gets to the references time, they scramble because they don't know who to contact, or they might say, "Oh, I've lost contact with that person." That's part of your network. That's part of why you should stay connected with those individuals, is that when the time comes, is that you can utilize them to help you give that reference that you need for that job application. Again, keep in mind, networking is not all about business transaction. It's about making that genuine, intentional, and authentic relationship. So let's dive into the cover letter and resume example. Oops, sorry, I jumped a little far there. Let me share. Let me open it up. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, I might have closed my cover letter. 1 second. Just let me reopen it. Bear with me. Okay. So I'm gonna, hopefully everyone can see this, is that I'm gonna open it up side by side with the job description. And so you can see what I'm talking about as we go along. So let me just adjust this. Sorry, bear with me. Okay. Screen. Okay. Okay, you're gonna see a lot of
Yep, we can see
my
it.
screen. Perfect. Okay, so just going back, I'm gonna make this a bit bigger so that you can all see here. So again, just a refresh, as on the far left that you see on your screen is the job description to the junior accountant role at a specific X company. Now, I've created a cover letter, and just for jokes, it's Charlie Brown and applying to Mr. Snoopy. Make sure when you're creating your cover letters, you're not addressing it to "Dear Hiring Manager." It's so generic. Make sure you do your prep work in advance. Find out who is it that you are applying to. Again, LinkedIn is your best friend. It's easily accessible these days that you can find these information. If you're unsure, just give the company a call and ask. I'm sure you can find that out. So again, the first a few sentences. The first paragraph should be a couple sentences again as to why you're applying for that specific position at that specific company. Make sure you mention the company's name, because a lot of times people forget. And then what are you bringing to the table? And again, making sure you are adding those keywords to your resume and cover letter when you are drafting it. So I can talk about, I have improved reconciliation accuracy and I'm quantifying it with time, with percentages, right? And look here in the job description, again, I'm using those keywords and putting it into my cover letter and resume and mentioning about what I have contributed to the team, and how effective was it. Those are things that are important, and talk about things you can talk about is internship. People might underestimate internships, but internships are very important because those are times where you're gaining the work experience and you're contributing to the organization. So don't ever underestimate what you are doing for in your internship. So, for this specific one, developed Excel templates. Maybe it is a startup company that you're working for, and they don't have a lot of procedures and policies in place. And that's where you are coming in with your skill sets to help provide more efficiency with for that specific company that you were interning at. And then, another thing here is that they talked about is that they want someone to be enrolled in the program. So if you're currently in the designation, this is a bit more generic, but I think if you're saying, I'm currently pursuing my CPA designation, I'm in the midst of getting my transcript assessed, or, I've been accepted into the program, et cetera, et cetera. Those are things that you can mention. And also was that this specific company that when I was doing my research, they were one of the BC's top employers. So with BC's top employers, there's specific criteria that they will be assessed. And, for example, work pay benefits, health and mental, workplace environment, etc. If those are the values that aligns to you, make sure that you added and included in your cover letters or in your interviews, etc. So another key component also is to have your contact information. A lot of times, I see cover letters with no contact information. So if for say the employer, they lose or they misplace your resume and cover letter and they don't know who's who. So if you don't have your contact information, and let's say this is an outstanding cover letter, how are they going to know that I want to contact Charlie Brown at this specific email address and contact and phone number to come in for an interview? So that's those things that you have, just little things that you have to pay attention to, but little goes a long way. Now let's take a look at the resume. So again, resume should complement your cover letter. But again, cover letter should also mention something that are not on your resume. So again, with your resume, it should highlight those keywords as well. If you are adding your LinkedIn handle in it, make sure it's up to date. That's very important because, it might be viewed. And if it's being viewed, make sure you update it, have the most up-to-date information there. It's important, I would say, to add a little bit of a small, short executive summary. Again, 2-3 sentences is more than enough. Never go beyond the 2-pager for your resumes. That's and so that it's easy on the eye. You don't want to overwhelm the person who is reviewing your resume and cover letters, and just stay relevant with your information that you're providing. So that's why I put so Charlie Brown has worked for a few years. So that's why I put the professional experience above the education, etc. So I talk about, uh, how long they've been with the company, listing the company, what position it was, and then again, very clear, concise bullet points, and making sure you're adding those verbs into your resume. So again, look at the key responsibilities in the job description: review, manage, prepare, etc. You want to make sure you add those in your resume as well, and talk about, let's say monthly bank reconciliation. So talk about reconciling, talk about balance sheets, those things are making sure you're just matching with the job description again. And quantifying, it's important, okay? Not quantifying, making sure that you're adding quantifiable statements. No, it's not only for your cover letter, but it's also in your resume. Talk about your internship. You talked about it in your resume, in your cover letter. You might as well talk about it and dive a bit deeper in your resume. And then, your education, certificates and training. It's very important. So, oops, so this was, well, typo. So that was, see, typo right there already. But just things like that, making sure you're listing out the certifications and trainings that you're doing. A lot of companies now, they're looking for technology skills. So what type of skill sets are you bringing? Is it AI? Is it SAP, Oracle, Power BI, et cetera, things like that. So make sure you list those out. It's very important. And also volunteer experience. Companies like to see extracurricular involvement. Are you giving back to the community, to the society? They like that. And it also speaks quite a bit about yourself as a person as well. So if you are volunteering, make sure you include that. What are you doing for them? Maybe it's once a month, or twice every quarter, whatever it may be. But just include that, so that it also helps maybe create that bonding relationship link for the other person reviewing your applications as well. Okay, so that's it for the resumes and cover letters. Let's go back to the slide and talk about interviews. So let's say you've passed the reviewer and you are now invited for an interview. So again, interviews, think about as first dates. You're making impressions, you're on air. How are you posing yourself? How are you presenting yourself? When you're showing your different, sorry, I went too fast there. When you are showcasing yourself and when you're sharing your stories, answering those questions, again, it's like reading a book. Is there a beginning? Is there a middle? Is there an end? In the beginning, what is, and it's also like the STAR method that people have talked about a lot lately, is, what was the situation? What was the beginning? And then what's the purpose of sharing that? The highlight, the climax. And at the end, is the person who is hearing your story, are they able to understand, what are you communicating to them? Is it easy to understand and follow your storyline? Are you delivering in a clear and concise manner? Communication skills is so, so important. So that's one thing and also handshakes. I think handshakes are very underrated. Is that when you're going for handshakes, when you're meeting the interview, make sure you give a nice handshake. The handshake should not be too weak. It should not be too firm that you're hurting the other person's hand, but it should be a good, firm handshake. Okay. And you're not just grabbing their fingers at the tip. You're giving them a good, like almost like a link of interlinking your thumb to thumbs together. That would be a good firm handshake. Really important. That's the first impression. They look at when the first impression, of course, we see you as a person. The next thing is the handshake, and hello, Hello, Katya. Nice to meet you. Give them a nice firm handshake. Those are all those first impressions that is going on in the other person's mind. Now let's talk about formats, okay, of different interview formats. So of course, there's the pre-screening where you get a, potentially get a phone call from probably the TAs, and then they ask you more of the generic questions. And then let's say you move on to the next round. It could be, one-on-ones, videos, or in person, or potentially group. So think about when you're all in those different interview settings. How are you positioning yourself? How are you presenting yourself? Again, it goes back to your professional presence. Let's say it's on screen. Are you in a quiet room? Do you have many external noises that is distracting you? Or if, let's say, you're sharing your screen like right now, do you have other applications turned on and it keeps on binging you like ding, 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 or the pop-ups that comes up, at the side of that corner of your screen. Those are things that you want to pay attention to. Did you restart your computer maybe 20 minutes beforehand, and make sure that your computer doesn't all of a sudden update on you and then you lose your interview meeting. Or it could be your dog's barking at you all of a sudden, or when you're in a video settings, let's say siren goes past you, that's okay. We understand that, you could be having the video interview remotely. That's fine. And those are external factors that you cannot control, right? If the sirens are going past you, just tell the interviewers like, sorry, there's a siren that's going, the ambulance that's passing my place. Could you just hang on one moment? I want to make sure that I catch the question that you're asking, or whatever I'm sharing, whatever story I'm sharing. I want to be able to ensure that you can hear me. Just addressing those, making sure that you address those. And if you're in person, I'm the type that I get nervous as well. I may not seem like I get nervous, but I do. And what I like to do when I like to calm my nerves is to have water with me. That's my calming mechanism. And whenever I go for interviews, I would bring a water bottle with me. Okay. Coffee is fine. I yeah, coffee is fine, but water bottle coffee, I would just kind of set it there, but that's my personal preference. And just make sure that it's, no alcohol at 11 a.m. to an interview meeting, things like that. Common sense, please. Um, and then let's say you're gonna be going into a group interview. Find out beforehand who they are. Because usually after you go through a pre-screen, they would say, okay, we'll move you to the next round. Then ask them at the same time, because you have them there, is who am I going to be meeting next? Find out so that you can do your little research. Again, prepare beforehand for the next round. The next one is work experience. So during your interview, for sure, you're going to be talking about your work experience. So if you don't have a lot of experience, let's say you're first grad, talk about those times where you are working in a team project. Those are things that they are reading between the lines of how are you working in a team setting, problem solving, etc. And make sure you leverage on your inexperience because it's a motivation to that your willingness to learn. Some people might think that, oh, inexperience, is it a downfall? And is it something that, I might not get hired but you've already made it this far. You've already at that interview stage. So that means that something of and the reviewers, they see it. They see it in your resume and your cover letter that you may not have a lot of experience, but something in there stands out. So make sure that you leverage on those inexperience as the motivation, that your willingness to learn and grow. So that goes back to what I was talking about growth opportunities. is your willingness to grow and receive those feedbacks, and your open mindset. And also is not everyone is going to have the exact skill sets that they're applying to. Make sure you highlight those transferable skills. So for example, I come with a background of conference planning. I used to plan uh, conferences, and I didn't do recruitment. But when I was going through the interview process, it's important to highlight what type of transferable skills you can bring to the table, you can bring to the organization in that specific role. So make sure you highlight those, and make sure you are able to articulate those through maybe storytelling, showcasing what you've contributed, etc. And accomplishments, um, they help illustrate your dedication, curiosity, and your commitment to learn, to grow, whether it's from, your studies in college or university or in your work experience. And those are those are the things that the interviewer wants to hear when they're going through this process. Make sure you celebrate those and talk about your accomplishments. But there, of course, there's the uh, the weaknesses as well. But how do you change the weaknesses to become a positive um, uh, thing instead? Another thing is, that there's a STAR method, but of course there's SMART goals as well. Being a specific, is it measurable, achievable, relatable, and make sure that you're addressing it in a very timely and supportive manner as well. And then next thing is get personal. This is the authentic you. You are your time to shine who you are as a person. Share some real life experiences. What are some of those lessons that you have learned and that has taught you and that you are able to carry forward and carry with you as you are growing in you as a person and in your career? Personal experience really shows, personally, I think personal experience shows maturity and the understanding of that the hiring manager would want or would like in the employees. So that's important. When I speak to individuals nowadays, I love to hear about personal experiences. And I love to learn what they have encountered and what they have gone through, because maybe I can learn something from them. And it's just having that open mindset that I'm not the person that knows it all. There are many other people that that have more knowledge than me, but I want to learn from them. I want to be successful like them. And having that goal, of course, making sure it's attainable, is important. And then when you are, curating your resume and cover letter, and then when you're going to that interview stage, those are your talking points. Make sure you highlight them in your interview. Um, there's a saying, it's keeping it classy. So skip all the parties and, all those nights where, you had maybe one too many drinks, etc. But again, stick to those life lessons that can really translate to good work ethics. Very important is to research, practice, and again, be realistic. And then the next one is to find a link. So this person, so when you're applying for the jobs or making a networking connection, it takes effort. Okay, and it really takes effort and the customization, the tailoring, but it does really pay off. Okay, and it also shows that you took the time. You took the time to get to know the other person. So again, do your research. So tomorrow we're having the Career Expo at the Vancouver Convention Center. When you registered for the event today, Career Week, you would have probably saw on the top left of the web page, there was a list of exhibitors. Good question to ask yourself. Did you do a research and look at those exhibitors that are coming? You know, how many of them are you wanting to be, you're wanting to have those conversations? How are you going to dress? Who's going to be attending? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of them, or I would say all of them, have posted on LinkedIn that they are going to be at the Career Expo tomorrow. So have you taken a look to see who made those posts? And have you done your research? So just again, make sure that you do that and prepare yourself. Um, And also finding a link is also, connecting your passions and life experiences with the specific company that you're communicating with. Those again translate to, potentially the ability to you hitting the ground and being able to just, hitting the ground right away and get things moving. Thank you, email. So this is so important. I can't stress again how overlooked this is that not a lot of people send the thank you email. Okay, and send it in a timely manner. What a timely manner means is within, let's say, the same day, the next day. A week, too long. That's the thing. A week is too long. Even personally, I think 2 days is it's too long as well. I think really the day of or the next day is the best. And that's also a good reminder to the company that you're applying to, who you are, what things that you've talked about, just a refresh for them. And then last but not least is the being authentic, engaging, genuine, and specific, using the PI method. Okay, so resources. Sorry, I think I talked a lot here. I think I ran out of time. Sorry. So you'll get a copy of those slides, so you'll see those resources. Okay,
Thank you so much, Alice, and thank you all for tuning in
sorry.
today. Sorry, we're cutting it a little short on the time, but we do have a
Yeah,
jam-packed day today.
yeah,
Not to worry, as I said in the beginning, the session is being recorded, so you will receive the recording, including the slides. So if you need the slide deck outside of the recording, you can email us at recruitment@bccp.ca. I did put that email address into the chat function, so you'll see it on the bottom in your navigation bar. Copy it out or find us on our website. Um, Redirect all your questions there. I'm really sorry we didn't get to any of the live questions. I've done my best in the background to address what I could. There are a few other questions, but if you really want those questions to be answered, please do email at recruitment@bccpa.ca. We don't want to leave you hanging, certainly,
yeah.
and we do want to ensure that you get your questions answered. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll hope to see you at the next session. Thank you, Alice.
Thanks. Bye.